In this video, I will show how I made this shack from dollar store materials. This project was heavily inspired by Blackmagic Craft. If you are interested in how to do a project like this properly, I highly suggest you go and watch his video. I will link that down below. When I originally watched the Blackmagic Craft video, I thought to myself, well, I could do this, but I would have to go and buy a wire brush because I don't have one. Then I remembered there's actually a wire brush that had been sitting on the front steps of my building for literally 2 months. So after rescuing that brush, I started the project. So the main component to this build is Dollar Tree foam board, where the paper just easily peels off, and I decided the base of the little shack was going to be these acid-free microfilm containers. These were being thrown away at my previous job, so I just had a bunch of these around. Honestly, you could probably pretty much use almost anything for the inside of this. I wasn't going to try for a hollow thing with an inside, so just a simple bit of train with no real bells or whistles. Very carefully using a scientific method for measuring the roof bit, so clearly since I was doing a shack, I decided not to be too exacting with my methods of measuring here. If you're going to be trying to build anything besides a shack, I would not recommend doing it like this. So I just used some hot glue to affix the beginnings of my roof to the substructure here. Held in place for a couple seconds just to let that glue set. Then I'm going to start using a cracker box as my roof section here. Once again, using some hot glue. I probably need a better quality hot glue gun if I'm going to be doing much more of this kind of work in the future. This is pretty much just a super cheap glue gun that I got for, I don't know, I think I paid like $3 for it. So there we have the rough substructure of our shack. Now we're going to kind of measure out a section of the foam here for the plank outside the facade of the shack. And we're going to use our free grill brush to make the lines on the foam board for the wooden grain. Boy, with this foam board, it takes, stuff super easy, so you actually don't have to use very much pressure at all to make some lovely little wood planks with this stuff, so just be very gentle. Speaking of gentle, I first tried starting off to use the classic Elmer's glue to put these in place. There's a lot of positives to using this stuff. I think that tacky glue would have been a much better way to do it, because frankly Elmer's glue just took way too long to set, and especially if you're doing various bits and pieces of this, then it's just a real pain. So I'll have to buy some tacky glue in the near future perhaps, because it just took too long to set. In fact, I just started to use some hot glue to do this instead of using the Elmer's glue on my third side here. And I was worried this would melt the foam core, but the foam core actually stood up to this pretty well. And it worked out much, much better than the Elmer's glue did. Of course, I'm doing this in my own haphazard, bombastic manner, so I'm trying to do this as quickly as I possibly can, which is okay with a shack like this. So again, that's why I suggest doing a shack type of building for your first attempt. Then I'm just kind of shaving off the excess on the bottom there. And I'm putting in a vertical piece of wood because there was a gigantic gap on the one side of the building. And the vertical piece of wood actually did a good job of hiding that. You'll see more later. Now to do the little cross section here. For some reason, I decided to cut these into vertical pieces, which didn't really make much sense. You can, after I got it painted, you can't really tell all that much, but I think It kind of worked just much better when everything was kind of just horizontal. So again, I'm not sure why I decided to do that. But again, it's a shack, so, you know, it's not going to look that horrible considering, you know, it's supposed to look like a horribly built shack in the first place. Second little section there. If this is a better made building, then there would probably be like little support structures and stuff. This is, I'm making a little door now. And I'm kind of cutting the foam board in half here to make the little crossbars of the door frame. And once again, sparingly using some stuff here to put the door frame together. And then I decided to actually cut the foam core off the substructure. This is one of the advantages, I guess, of using something solid underneath the foam board. So I was able to just cut out the doorway and glue back on a little piece of wood that fell off there. And then boom, my little door fit nice and cozy, flush with the outside. And then I kind of measured up a window. At this point, this is when I realized that the actual scale of this building was completely off. So this is much more in scale with perhaps a half ogre or something like that. It's definitely rather large for a normal 28mm building. Perhaps a hag house or something like that. And then I was very neatly and cleanly cutting out some tiles for the roof. I originally was planning to do them all like one-on-one, but man, that was taking a long time. So I decided to do some different manners of, you know, cutting cost here. I was just kind of cutting them all in one strip and affixing them like that, which was working out pretty okay. But on the other side, I ended up doing some more, you know, bombastic little affixes here, like it. I was going for a look of somebody had never actually put the shingles on there correctly, and later on somebody did a really poor repair job. So that's what I was kind of going for. Looking back, I probably could have like painted the shingles different colors, like they had used different kinds of wood to do the repair work on top. So you can see there, I've been trying to figure out different ways of doing the shingles. And that actually helped me trying out all these different ways as I was making it. Actually sort of helped out by making the shack look as ramshackle as possible, which is pretty good. So yeah, I was doing the different methods here of just tearing them off and then affixing them one by one with longer strips, which is much easier. And again, of course, I nearly burnt myself very badly a number of times here doing it like this. Affixing some strips again, as you can see, they're all pre-cut on the end there. Let me tell you guys, the tiles on this stupid roof was what took me the absolute most time. And all to like put this thing together probably took about 3 hours, I want to say, maybe 3 hours complete. And the roof took up an inordinate amount of that time. If you'll notice, there's a little mold of a wolf pelt that I kind of stuck on the side there for a little bit of extra something on this little guy here. Basically, the wolf pelt was a miscast piece of Lady Sabelle Designs work. So she does like little bits and pieces that you can do. And now, of course, I'm adding on the Black Magic Craft base coat here. This is the completely incorrect way to do it. I slathered this on. I meant to only slather on the roof. If you want to keep all your texture, you're not going to want to slather it on quite as heavy on the actual outside of the building. But man, I made the mistake of making this late at night, so I was just trying to get this done so I could go to bed. So I think I probably would have had a little bit more texture on the outside if I had just maybe used a little bit more care and caution doing this. But yeah, it still worked out pretty good. Most of the texture on the outside was still there, and I kind of ran my brush down the top a little bit to add a little bit of texture to the tiles on the top of it. So I added a little bit of yellow into some wood coloring there for the base coat. I really wanted this to look like the old shacks that I kind of grew up with in the North Country, where, it's just this horrible grayish look with all this weird, like, green mold and stuff on there. And I was trying to go for cedar-looking tiles on the top, and I was okay. I could have given a nicer paint job to the little bit of wolf pelt on the outside, but, it is what it is. So, just a basic gray dry brush, very, very heavy dry brush on the wood brown there. Didn't really look like that much starting off. And I added some much lighter gray kind of ivory. Then I started doing some heavy kind of ivory dry brushing on the tiles there. And then this is me adding some light blue on it, kind of like aqua blue, and green on the outside. And then putting an even lighter coat of grayish white on the tiles. And so it's a pretty good look. And then I ended up using brown wash on the outside of the building, which looked fantastic compared to like what it looked like with just the dry brush. So that worked out pretty good. And then a very black wash on the top with the tiles there, which actually turned out to be pretty good. Happy enough with how that turned out. Just added a little black to certain areas of the boards as well, and added some black wash to the doorway to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. Then I had an idea how to hide the little bits of glue that were left over on the outside. A little bit of green to make it look like slime and such. And you know what? It turned out okay. This is like really my first real like scratch project that I have put hours into, and it didn't turn out that bad at all. I mean, I really like the roof. That I think was the best little bit. Obviously, going a little bit heavy with the old glue gun there, that screwed up things a little bit. But yeah, I think this is gonna look really good on my campaign table. I think I might actually change around the campaign so this is actually like an ogre or a half-ogre hut, or perhaps even a hag shack, because, man, it's just a little bit big for a regular medium creature dwelling. But the most important thing is that I learned a lot from doing this project. Tabletop Minions recently did a video on the 90-10 rule, about how much time you should invest in watching videos about doing something rather than actually doing something yourself. And frankly, I've been watching a lot of videos on doing scratch builds, but this is the first large project that I've actually set out and done myself, and frankly, I learned way more by actually attempting the build rather than just watching crafting videos. So I highly suggest that anyone who is interested in doing a build like this, start with a shack. If you screw up, it's much easier to fix it, and at the end of the build, it will still look like a shack. This took me 3 hours to put together, about 45 minutes to black bomb it with the Black Magic Craft base coat, and another 2.5 hours to finish painting it. If anybody has any questions about the techniques that I used in this build, please let me know in the comments below. If you found this video to be helpful, please share it. Have a great day, and as always, thank you for watching the video.